Hello and welcome to Your Questions Answered with Father Gruner. I'm John Veneri. In this program, we take the questions that you send us. Father Gruner answers them, and we talk about them and have discussion. Please continue to send us your questions at, see the email, questions@thefatimacenter.com. This question said, did Putin in 2013 ask Pope Francis to consecrate Russia? What do we know about that?
Well, we know a fair amount. First of all, we know that Putin visited with Pope Francis on the, I think it was the 25th of November, if I'm not mistaken, but it was around that time. 1 year later, I was in Strasbourg asking for the consecration of Russia, and the same day the Pope was there. But it was in 2013, sometime towards the end of November, that Putin met the Pope, and he certainly talked about Fatima to the Pope. Certainly Putin has heard about the consecration. Surprisingly, he knows quite a bit about it.
Now, if you don't mind me asking at this point, I know you may not be able to reveal sources, but how do you know this?
Well, I know this, first of all, because I was talking to the Russian embassy myself. They asked me, actually, to be very strictly accurate about this, they phoned up my office in Rome, and they asked for me, and I wasn't there because I was over here, but I had just left. I'd been in Rome the month before, and my office manager there said, well, he's not here. But so the words used were something like this. Well, when Father Gruner comes back to Rome, let him know he's very welcome to visit us at the Russian embassy. This is the embassy accredited with the Holy See. They have another embassy accredited to the state of Italy, but this is the one for the religious one, or the one accredited to the Holy See. And they made it very clear they wanted to meet me, but they didn't say, we were insisting he come, but let him know he's very welcome.
It's diplomatic. It's the way the language works.
Yes. So they would like to meet me, and so I was quite happy to explain. So I went over there. Next time I was there before Putin actually showed up in Rome, and so now the ambassador there didn't say that he was going to talk about this. The ambassador didn't say that, but I gave him a lot of material. Now I would say this besides, that we had given away what and you've seen this journal, John, that you helped us with some of it, is the Observatory of Fatima. We had blanketed the area around Rome, around the Vatican City, and including the Vatican, just so you know, of course, where it is, but on Vatican City, the street going up to St. Peter's is called the Via di Conciliazione, and the embassy to the Russian embassy to the Holy See is on that street. A lot of other people are on that street, but they're on that street. So it would be quite hard for them not to get this piece of paper, which talked about Russia, also about the consecration of Russia. So they had it, and they had it in October. We gave away 200,000 copies of that, and of 75,000 were distributed around there. How they could miss it? I mean, certainly the people maybe didn't deliver them, but they certainly had the opportunity to have it. So I'm assuming they got this journal anyway. I gave them another copy before, as best I remember, when I was there in early November, a few days before Putin was in Rome. The day Putin was there at Rome, I was gone. But certainly Father Kramer was with me in the Russian embassy, and Father Kramer was still in Rome. In fact, we arranged that he would be there still until now. Father Kramer has himself said that Francis was asked about this. But I do know, apart from Father Kramer, from sources that I don't feel
sure
that they're able to release, but that there was a man I've spoken to personally who was with Putin that day, and he did speak about Fatima to the Pope. This gentleman telling me this, and this man has known Putin for a long time, and he was in Putin's entourage. He was the other man with the Pope at the time. With Putin when he met the Pope, and so he's saying that Putin definitely talked about Fatima, as he himself did, to Pope Francis. So to put the question, I assume it wouldn't be far a jump for him to ask to talk about. Now, did he ask him to consecrate Russia? That I don't know. I do know this also, and I say this from a Vatican diplomat, and again I won't give the name, but he's a Vatican diplomat, an archbishop, a bishop anyway, who's been a bishop for more than 40 years. And that's saying a lot, but he himself told me that he knew that Pope Benedict had sent a delegate to Moscow to ask if the Patriarch minded if the Pope did the consecration. This is now be Pope Benedict. Unfortunately, I realized from talking to this Vatican diplomat that neither Pope Benedict nor the Vatican diplomat nor the bishop I'm talking about, anyone understood the question. That it was put as if the consecration of Russia was somehow or other an insult to the Russians. That somehow or other it was because they were quote unquote bad. Well, they completely missed the point. Russia is been given a special gift from heaven that God, I mean, more exactly, it would seem that the Blessed Virgin herself, but in fact, our Lord himself said, God has entrusted Russia to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. So that's it. That's for God's good reasons. God doesn't have to explain himself, but God, in fact, has done that. So, and that, but somehow or other, in the transmission from the papal nuncio to the patriarch at the time. Now that patriarch has since died, but so we're talking. But he said, no, Russia doesn't need this as much as the West does. It's not about Russia needing it. It's not because Russia is bad or worse or whatever. It's about a choice of God. I mean, let me tell you, if I was a Russian patriarch or if I was a Russian citizen, I would say, well, I'm very honored to be chosen by heaven to have my country consecrated. I would love that for my country.
Specifically requested by Our Lady herself.
Yes.
Yeah.
So none of them got it. So that's part of the problem. I've been excluded, from, not that it has to be me. I'm not saying the Pope has to talk to me, but the Pope has to talk to somebody who understands the message of Fatima. Up to now, the Vatican hasn't understood this at all, apparently, from what I'm getting from this. And yes, I know that also from a Vatican diplomat. I know that personally. So, so apparently, the popes have not understood this. The Vatican diplomat service does not understand this. They don't even understand the message in the first place. It's unfortunate. And so, the Pope, talked about Fatima, and the Pope didn't. I mean, Putin. Apparently, I think Putin knows more about Fatima in this regard than the Pope does.
Pope Francis.
Pope Francis.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that's very possible. I just read a biography of Pope Francis. It went into a tremendous amount of detail. But the word Fatima is not in that book at all.
Yeah.
So I don't know that Fatima is really part of Francis's thinking.
No, even though he asked for it, I mean, it's quite publicly stated that, and it's we announced it also, but it's quite publicly stated that Francis asked more than once to the Patriarch of Lisbon, that is Portugal, the capital of Portugal, to consecrate his papacy to Our Lady of Fatima. But apparently, he doesn't know what it means. He doesn't know what Fatima means. He doesn't know what Our Lady of Fatima asked for or anything. So that's the impression you get from looking at his papacy and subsequent events. So I know that Putin talked from what it was the same source. He talked to other high, government officials of other countries. I say countries in plural, but and they didn't know what he was talking about. But he understood.
Yeah, I guess that's a big problem that we encounter, because Aristotle says what's ever received is received in the manner of the recipient.
Yeah.
So you can explain something to someone, and their mindset is so far removed from what you're trying to explain that they only catch pieces of it, or they completely misunderstand it. Yeah. That's why sometimes you have to explain something 3 times to someone. Yeah. And I think this is what we're dealing with. I say this with respect, with present-day Vatican leadership, that the true and full message of Fatima, in a certain sense, doesn't have anything to land on, because so many have this different view of Catholicism brought about by the aggiornamento of the Council.
Well, I think the other thing is that, unfortunately, people come to the message of Fatima with their own agendas. They say, when I say the agenda is even too strong a word, with their own, paradigm. They have their own, shall we say, construction in their own mind, how God should do things and how Our Lady should do things. And so, somebody, even people I've known for a long time, they say, well, our country wasn't being asked to be consecrated, and so we're good. They're the ones that are bad. No, hey, wait, just hold it. A consecration, what does the word mean? It means to set something aside for a holy purpose. It means that God wants Russia to be set aside to the Immaculate Heart of Mary for a special purpose, for a holy purpose. That's an election. That's a vessel of election. That's being, St. Paul was a sinner. He persecuted the church, but he was preordained by God from all eternity that he'd be set aside for a holy purpose. St. Paul's perhaps he is one of the greatest saints, in the opinion of Padre Pio. After the Blessed Virgin and St. Joseph, St. Paul is the highest saint. Now, I don't say Padre Pio is right, but I wouldn't argue with him. But yet, he persecuted the church at one time. He was a sinner. But yet, God has elected him as a vessel of election from all eternity. Well, God has elected Russia from all eternity at this time to be consecrated to God's service, particularly for the service of the Blessed Virgin, the Immaculate Heart of Mary. This is not an insult. This is a great thing. It's an honor, but it's much more than an honor. It's almost a free ticket to heaven once they get this consecration. I don't want to exaggerate it, but my point is that, but how the Vatican get this mixed up, how the Vatican delegate can get it mixed up, and so the Patriarch says, we don't want it. You guys need it more than we do. That's not the point at all. How badly can they get it? I don't know. I've been at this for 37 years. I do know something, but they refuse to insist. They want to, the Vatican head of security comes, don't talk to the, we're going to eject you now unless you give me your word. I didn't give my word, but I wasn't.
You're talking about the time you were ejected from St.
Well, they were
Peter's,
trying to at first.
Trying to eject you because there was the threat that you might talk to the Pope about Fatima.
Yeah, and this shows how paranoid and how stupid the whole situation is. But anyway, so someone's got to get this message too. Obviously, it's not going to be me as long as they got the Vatican security like they have, and the people giving him the orders from higher up. So, and judging from Francis's knowledge of Fatima, it may have come from him for all I know.
So, this drama is still unfolding, and we're out of time here. But I urge you to keep following these programs, and especially the literature produced by the Fatima Center, because this is the type of thing we talked about today that is continually published through the Fatima Crusader and the other publications. So that's all for this program, and we will see you on the next episode. Thank you.